there's this wonderful part of Preach My Gospel where there's this quote from Richard G. Scott, and it's in chapter 7, and Richard G. Scott says, when national cultures or traditions are in line with the gospel, those cultures or traditions should be embraced and cherished. And when they are not, they should be, put away. And so the recommendation under that point in chapter 7 is to write out a number of ways that the culture that you are in is different than your culture back home, and then realize what sort of things are in line with the gospel and not. And so, of course, I talked about respect to the ancestors, or just how organized everyone was, how healthy everyone was. It's like, oh yeah, these are really big differences, and I should put these into my life. And hopefully I'm starting to do that a little bit. But there was one thing that I did feel was a little bit different, and that was sometimes the lack of expression of love in Japanese friends and families. And there's this story that I've heard of, the way you translate "I love you" into Japanese is "Look at the moon, isn't it beautiful?" Because they don't really say it the same way that we do all the time. And so the idea of something romantic is just, oh, look at the moon. It's romantic and beautiful, and sort of has similar connotations as we would say "I love you." Anyways, I told my companions all the time I loved them, but I didn't really expand it much beyond that until I think it was my second to last transfer. And I was reading that part in Preach My Gospel under chapter 6, where it has you do a self-reflection on, do I express love to those close to me when appropriate? And I thought, I'm teaching a guy right now, a couple of them, and I really love them. I want them to be happy. I want them to join the church. I want them to have their goals fulfilled. And one of them was 70, and one of them was 21, 22. And the one that was 21 or 22 had been investigating the church for a year or more, just really, not really advancing in his learning of the gospel, but I just loved him. He was such a great guy. He could remember every missionary's name, very friendly, loved nature. And so anyways, one day, instead of a lesson where it seemed like he didn't always agree with what we were saying, we thought, what if we just asked him to go on a walk in this beautiful park that's right in one of our areas? So we went on a walk, and we had a wonderful conversation, and it was a blast. And at the end, I felt like I should tell him I loved him. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll see you later. And I gave him a hug, and I told him, I love you. And he later told me, when I left the mission, he gave me a letter saying how much that meant to him, that I had said those words to him, and that how much he desired to share bright words with others, and how much he wanted to share God's words with others, because he thought, I love you is God's words. And I think that is true as well. God is love, so wouldn't the expression of love be similarly God's words? The other 70-year-old that I talked about also had, sort of a big reaction to the words, I love you. He said, in Japan, people don't say that very often. It's not common. He said, if I think of my obosan, which would be like a Buddhist preacher, telling me I love you, I would jump, it would just be crazy. So it's very bizarre to me that you come in as a teacher of religion and you say, I love you. That's just not what I expected, but it's wonderful. And he didn't have any family at that time, and I feel like we were his family, and I still have that very close bond to him because I told him I loved him. And I only told a few other investigators I loved them in my last transfer. I think it was only a total of 3 people that I told them, I really love you. All of them guys. I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that to a girl on a mission. But that was an instance where the culture was different, but I felt it made it all the more meaningful that I chose to do something that was culturally out of bounds. And I'm so happy I did that, and I wish I would have done it earlier.